Most observers view this image as a tragedy. A forensic accountant views it as a simple calculation of negative equity. To recover a human body from the death zone requires a specialized team of 6 Sherpas, a high-altitude helicopter pilot, and a logistics budget exceeding $70,000. The body itself has zero residual value. Therefore, from a purely financial perspective, leaving the corpse on the mountain is the only rational decision. Most families run the numbers and choose to default on the recovery. Welcome to the Khumbu Glacier. To the uninitiated, this is nature. To the industry, this is a scalable revenue stream. Every spring, a temporary city rises here. It is a closed economic zone with a population of 1,500 and a GDP higher than some small island nations. But entry into this market is strictly regulated. Before you purchase a single tank of oxygen, you must pay the gatekeeper, the Nepal Ministry of Tourism. Let's analyze the profit margins of a sovereign border. The government charges $11,000 for a climbing permit. For context, the average annual income in Nepal is roughly $1,300. This means one Western tourist pays nearly a decade's worth of local wages just for the right to stand on the ice. In 2023, the ministry issued a record 478 permits. That is $5.2 million in direct revenue. The overhead cost to print these papers? Near zero. The profit margin? 100%. They are not selling a service. They are selling a monopoly on geography. Once inside the zone, the economy bifurcates into 2 distinct tiers. This is the base camp spread. On the low end, you have the budget operators. Price point: $35,000. This covers the bare logistical minimum: food, tents, and generic gear. The profit margin here is razor thin, forcing operators to cut costs on the most critical variable: safety. On the high end, you have the elite agencies. Price point: $100,000 and up. Here, the client is not paying for the climb. They are paying for redundancy. A budget client gets 3 bottles of oxygen. An elite client gets unlimited flow. A budget client shares a Sherpa. An elite client buys a personal team. In the death zone, this price difference is not about luxury. It is an insurance premium against biological failure. You are literally paying a markup on your own survival probability. But the entire industry rests on a single financial discrepancy: the Sherpa arbitrage. The industry classifies Sherpas as guides. The ledger classifies them as disposable assets. Let's look at the risk-to-wage ratio. A Western client, the revenue source, crosses the deadly Khumbu icefall exactly 2 times, once up, once down. The Sherpa, the labor unit, must cross that same instability up to 30 times a season to ferry supplies. His statistical exposure to catastrophic failure is 1,500% higher. And his compensation? The average season pay is $5,000. The life insurance payout for a Sherpa death is capped by law at roughly $11,000. This number is critical. The industry has priced a human life exactly equal to the cost of 1 climbing permit. If a Sherpa dies, the operator pays the $11,000, hires a replacement, and the supply chain continues uninterrupted. Financially speaking, the Sherpa is a replaceable component, cheaper than a high-end camera lens. As we push for the summit, we encounter the most dangerous psychological bias in economics: the sunk cost fallacy. The famous traffic jam on the Hillary Step is a bottleneck of investment. By the time a climber reaches 8,500 meters, they have invested $60,000 and 2 months of lost income. Their oxygen is a depreciating asset, burning at a rate of $400 per hour. When the line stops, the burn rate continues. A rational actor would turn around to conserve capital, in this case, life. But the sunk cost fallacy dictates that because they have paid so much, they must continue. They trade their biological solvency for a summit selfie. This inability to write off a bad investment is the primary cause of death in the modern era. But the most sophisticated financial scheme happens well below the summit. It is known as the fake rescue fraud. In 2018, a government investigation revealed a massive conspiracy between trekking agencies and helicopter operators. Here is the mechanism. A client buys a travel insurance policy worth $100. Midway through the trek, the guide encourages the client to report a minor illness, headache, or fatigue. Sometimes, guides are incentivized to ensure the client feels sick by tampering with food. Why? Because calling a helicopter triggers a payment. The insurance company is billed $20,000 for an emergency medical evacuation. The helicopter operator takes the cash and secretly pays a kickback commission of up to $3,000 back to the guide and the trekking agency. It is a perverse incentive structure. A healthy client walking down is worth zero. A sick client flying down is worth $3,000 in immediate cash. It turned emergency rescue into a volume-based sales business. Reaching the top is only halfway. 80% of fatalities occur on the descent. This is where the social contract collapses under financial pressure. If a climber collapses at 8,700 meters, they become a 200-pound liability. To rescue them requires the energy output of 4 fresh Sherpas. But in the traffic jam, energy is scarce. The market dictates that the cost of rescue exceeds the available resources, so the climbers step over the dying body. It is not personal malice, it is a calculation of energy bankruptcy. Beyond the immediate fraud, there is a long-term liability that remains off the books, the ecological debt. The South Col is not just a campsite, it is the world's highest open-air landfill. A forensic audit of the snow reveals 12 tons of human waste, abandoned tents, and empty oxygen canisters per season. The government mandates a $4,000 garbage deposit, refundable only if a team brings their waste down. But run the logistics math. To pay a Sherpa to carry 50 pounds of frozen waste down from Camp 4 costs more than $4,000 in wages and oxygen. So, commercial operators make a rational business decision. They forfeit the deposit. They treat the fine as a standard pollution tax, pay it, and leave the trash. It is financially cheaper to pollute than to clean. Finally, we must analyze the source of the capital. Who pays for this? In the 1990s, climbers were self-funded. Today, the market is driven by the sponsorship bubble. Over 60% of modern clients are climbing on corporate credit or crowdfunding. They sell the summit photo before they even leave sea level. Brands pay for exposure. This creates a dangerous pressure called ROI anxiety. If a sponsored climber turns around to save their life, they lose their asset, the content. They default on their contract. So they push into the death zone, not for survival, but for brand equity. They are dying for engagement metrics. Everest Inc. is the ultimate expression of extreme capitalism. It is a supply chain where the wealthy outsource risk to the poor, where sovereignty is monetized at a 10,000% markup, and where the price of a life is explicitly written in the insurance policy. The mountain does not care about your net worth, but the industry does. As long as the demand for ego satisfaction exists, the market will provide the supply, regardless of the death toll. This is extreme economics.